Carter Langley, human exobiologist, adjusted his equipment as the shuttle descended through the dense cloud cover of Zanthi 3. Beside him, his assistant, Dr. Miles Jensen, peered eagerly out of the viewport. "Can you believe we're actually here, Carter? This planet's been on the unexplored list for decades," Miles exclaimed. "I know. It's the break we've been waiting for," Carter replied, securing the last of his gear. "Just remember, it's uncharted for a reason. The reports suggest it's not just the flora and fauna that are dangerous, but the environment itself." As the shuttle touched down on a clearing surrounded by towering verdant trees, the door hissed open, revealing the humid alien world. Their team, including their pilot, Luca Griggs, and security officer, Tara Smith, quickly unloaded their equipment. Luca, checking his handheld scanner, called over, "We've got a few hours of daylight left. Best make good use of it." The team ventured into the thick jungle, the sounds of unknown creatures echoing around them. Carter led the way with Tara at his side, her hand close to the blaster at her belt. "You really think we'll find something groundbreaking?" Tara asked, scanning the dense foliage. Carter, focused on his bioscanner, nodded. "Every planet holds secrets, Tara. Our job is to uncover them without getting ourselves killed." Miles, a few steps behind, let out a low whistle. "Hey, check this out!" He crouched beside a luminescent plant, its petals opening as if sensing his presence. As they documented the plant, Luca's voice crackled through their comms. "Team, be advised. I'm picking up some large life forms nearby, possibly apex predators. Stay alert." The warning barely had time to sink in when a rustle in the bushes nearby drew their attention. Tara instinctively drew her blaster, pointing it towards the sound. "Easy," Carter said softly, his eyes fixed on the movement. A gigantic creature, covered in scales that shimmered with a metallic sheen, stepped into the clearing. It stood on 4 powerful legs, its eyes glinting with intelligence. Miles gasped. "Is that a—" "Threx," Carter finished for him, his voice a mixture of awe and caution. "Incredible. They're supposed to be legends." The threx tilted its head, eyeing Carter closely. Instead of fear, Carter felt a surge of curiosity. He slowly extended his hand towards the creature, an offering of peace. Tara lowered her blaster slightly, watching the interaction with bated breath. "Carter, are you sure about this?" "It's okay," Carter murmured, his gaze locked on the threx. "I don't think it wants to hurt us." The creature sniffed Carter's hand then, in a gesture that seemed almost understanding, nudged his palm gently with its snout. Miles recorded every moment, his hands steady despite the adrenaline. "This is historic," he whispered. Luca's voice broke through their amazement. "I'm glad you're making friends, but we should really think about getting back. It's going to be dark soon, and this planet's night predators are another story." Reluctantly, Carter withdrew his hand, giving the threx one last look. "We'll come back tomorrow, see if we can learn more about their behavior." As they made their way back to the shuttle, the image of the threx lingered in Carter's mind, a symbol of the mysteries waiting to be uncovered on Zanthi 3. What had begun as a routine exploratory mission was now shaping up to be something far more significant. Back aboard their shuttle, the mood was electric, the air thick with excitement and disbelief. As Carter downloaded the day's recordings, Miles couldn't stop talking about their encounter. "Did you see the way it looked at you? It's like it understood you were not a threat," Miles said, replaying the footage on a small screen. "Yeah, I saw. It's bizarre, isn't it?" Carter replied, his mind racing. "It goes against everything we know about threx. They're supposed to be solitary and extremely aggressive." Tara, who was checking her gear, chimed in. "Maybe we've got it all wrong. Maybe they're just misunderstood." Lucas snorted as he navigated the ship. "Or maybe we just got lucky. I wouldn't count on that thing being friendly next time." The team's banter was cut short when an alert sounded. Carter looked up, his brow furrowed. "We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. That's odd. We're not due to report until the end of the week." He tapped a few commands into the console, and the stern face of Administrator Niles from the Council appeared on their screen. "Dr. Langley, I trust you are aware of the gravity of your actions today?" Niles's voice was icy. Carter exchanged puzzled looks with his team. "I'm not sure I follow, Administrator. We encountered a threx, but we took all necessary precautions." Niles's eyes narrowed. "Your encounter was broadcast live across the galaxy, Dr. Langley. You've caused quite a stir. How did you manage to calm a threx?" Carter was stunned. "Broadcast? We didn't broadcast anything. It must have been the scouting drone. Niles cut him off. Regardless, your actions have implications, Doctor. There are treaties in place. The threx are considered a Class A hazard. Fraternizing with them is not only dangerous, but could be seen as an act of provocation to species who've suffered from their attacks. Miles stood up. With all due respect, sir, we were not fraternizing. Carter was ensuring our safety. The footage suggests otherwise to many who've seen it, Niles replied sharply. The Council demands your immediate return to discuss your conduct. Luca muted the transmission, glancing at Carter. What are we going to do? Carter's jaw set firmly. We're going to finish what we started. We have 2 more days until we need to dock for refueling. We're going to gather more data on the threx. Maybe we can prove they're not what everyone thinks. As the team agreed, Tara voiced a concern. We should be careful. This kind of attention can attract the wrong kind of interest. Agreed, Carter said. Let's keep a low profile and focus on the mission. We need to understand the threx better, not just for our sakes, but perhaps for the benefit of the galaxy. The next morning they ventured out again, but the atmosphere was different. The weight of potential scrutiny, possibly even danger, loomed over them as they moved through the dense foliage. As they approached the area where they first encountered the threx, Carter's comm device buzzed. It was an encrypted message from an unknown sender with just a few chilling words. We're watching you. Carter pocketed the device, his resolve hardening. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them head-on, armed with curiosity and a determination to seek the truth. In the vast chambers of the Galactic Council, representatives from various alien species convened in a hurried session, their murmurs filling the air with a blend of concern and curiosity. The central hologram displayed the now infamous footage of Carter Langley's encounter with the threx, looping the moment his hand gently brushed the creature's snout. Ambassador Zorvac of the Trinali, a species long tormented by threx attacks, was first to speak, his voice resonant and troubled. This footage is deeply unsettling. A human, alone, manages what none of our warriors or tamers could achieve. This begs the question, are humans to be our new guardians or our greatest threat? His query hung in the air, reflecting the underlying tension many felt about humanity's unpredictable nature. Across the chamber, Lee saw X, representing the technologically advanced but peaceful Zanari, adjusted her translation device. We must not rush to judgment based on a single incident. This human showed no aggression. Perhaps this is an opportunity to reassess our understanding of the threx, and indeed, of humans. The room buzzed with whispered debates until Administrator Niles took the floor. His stance was clear as he addressed the assembly. While the Zanari's point is taken, we must consider the security implications. The threx are classified as a top-tier galactic hazard. Any abnormal interaction with them could destabilize regions still recovering from their rampages. We propose a motion to restrict human activities on uncharted planets until this matter is further investigated. In a quieter corner of the chamber, an encrypted communication line buzzed silently. Zan Yul, a shadowy figure from the Free Traders Alliance, watched the proceedings with keen interest. It seems humans are more resourceful than we thought, he murmured into the device. This could be an advantageous development for us. Meanwhile, back on Zanthi 3, Carter and his team were unaware of the galactic storm they had stirred. They continued their research, each discovery shedding a little more light on the mysterious threx. Miles had developed a particular interest in the creature's behavior. Carter, look at this, Miles called out, pointing to a series of markings on a tree trunk, remarkably similar to those found near threx lairs. I think the threx might be more territorial than we assumed. These markings, they're a communication, maybe even a warning. Carter examined the marks, his mind racing with possibilities. If we can decode this, it might give us leverage at the Council. Show them there's a way to coexist or even manage threx populations safely. Their conversation was cut short by a sudden alert from Tara's scanner. We've got company, and not the friendly kind. Looks like that broadcast did more than catch the Council's eye. 3 figures, cloaked and heavily armed, emerged from the shadows of the trees. The leader, a rugged Jotun with cybernetic enhancements, stepped forward, his voice gruff. Dr. Langley, you have something of interest to us. Hand over your data on the threx and you might walk away from this. Carter stood firm, his team rallying around him. Our research is not for sale, especially not to smugglers. The standoff was tense, each side calculating the risk of a skirmish. It was Tara who broke the silence, her blaster aimed not at the smugglers, but at a high branch overhead. With a sharp shot, she dislodged a massive web that tumbled down, ensnaring the intruders. "Let's move," she urged, and the team made a swift retreat back to their shuttle, the precious data on their findings secure for now. As they fled, Carter couldn't help but feel the weight of the galaxy's eyes on them, each with their own designs and fears about the powers they had unwittingly unleashed. After the encounter with the smugglers, Carter Langley and his team made a strategic retreat back to their temporary base camp, their shuttle's ramp closing with a heavy thud of finality. Luca Griggs, their pilot, immediately started the systems check, his eyes narrowed in concentration. "We need to get off this planet and back to safe territory," Luca declared, flipping switches with practiced ease. "Those guys won't be the last to try and jump us for the threx data." Carter was at the communication console, sending a secure message to their contact within the Galactic Council, hoping to get some advice or even intervention. "There's more at stake here than we thought. It's not just about the threx anymore," he muttered. Tara Smith was checking their weapon supplies, her movements efficient but tense. "We're not equipped for a prolonged fight, especially if word gets out that we're sitting on a potential goldmine of data." Miles Jensen, still poring over the threx data they had collected, looked up. "There's a pattern here with the threx that we're missing. Something about these creatures is key to understanding not just their behavior, but maybe even their origin." Before they could discuss further, an alert sounded through the cabin. The ship's external cameras showed a group of armed ships approaching, their designs unfamiliar and menacing. Luca glanced at Carter. "Looks like the Council isn't the only one watching our every move now. We've got incoming and they don't look like they're here to negotiate." Carter's decision was swift. "Take us up, Luca. Get us into orbit and set a course for the nearest Council outpost. We'll have a better chance of defending ourselves there and pleading our case." As the shuttle lifted off, dodging incoming fire, the pursuit was relentless. The attackers were well coordinated, suggesting they were mercenaries, possibly hired by those who wanted the threx data to remain a secret, or worse, wanted it for their own dangerous purposes. In the midst of evasion maneuvers, Carter contacted the outpost. "This is Dr. Carter Langley, requesting immediate sanctuary under Galactic Council authority. We are under attack and carrying valuable scientific data." The response was terse and did not bode well. "Acknowledged, Dr. Langley. However, our ability to provide assistance is limited. You are advised to surrender to Council forces for your safety and compliance." Carter frowned, realizing they were being funneled into a trap not just by mercenaries, but potentially by political forces within the Council itself. "No, we take our chances. Luca, plot a course for the unclaimed systems. We might find some allies there." As they rocketed through space, narrowly escaping capture, the implications of their findings and the dangers they faced became clearer. Carter and his team were not just fugitives. They were players in a galactic game of power and control, with the threx data as their unwilling pawn. In the relative safety of hyperspace, the team gathered to discuss their next move. "We need a plan that doesn't involve running indefinitely," Tara said, looking between her colleagues. Miles, ever the scientist, had an idea. "What if we go public? Release the data to everyone. It's harder to silence or discredit what's out in the open." Carter considered this. "It's risky, but it might just diffuse the situation enough to give us some room to maneuver. All right, let's prepare the data for release. If we're going down, we're not going down without a fight." As the team set to work, the reality of their situation settled around them like a cloak. They were alone, far from home, and standing against unseen enemies for a truth that could change the galaxy. The road ahead was uncertain, but their resolve was clear. They would fight to protect the threx, and in doing so, perhaps find a way to protect themselves. Carter Langley stared at the screen before him, the data from their threx studies compiled and ready to be shared across the galaxy. With a heavy sigh, he clicked the button that would broadcast their findings far and wide. It was a risky move, but desperation had driven them to this point. Miles Jensen looked over his shoulder, a mix of anticipation and anxiety in his eyes. "There's no turning back now, Carter. Whatever happens next, we did what we thought was right." As the data streamed into the ether, Luca Griggs manned the communications array, monitoring the influx of responses. It didn't take long. Messages flooded their system, ranging from scholarly praise to outright threats. The galaxy was watching, and not everyone was pleased. "The Council isn't going to like this," Tara Smith remarked, her voice tense as she loaded her weapon. "We've just made ourselves the biggest targets out there." Carter nodded. his resolve firm. Let them come. We're standing on the side of truth. Maybe this will shake things up enough to give us some breathing room. The gamble seemed to pay off initially. Academics and independent researchers hailed the revelation as groundbreaking. Debates raged across scientific forums, with many questioning long-held beliefs about the threx and their nature. However, the spotlight also attracted darker forces. A notorious bounty hunter, known only by the moniker the Ghoul, took interest in the bounty on Carter's head. The Ghoul was a relentless tracker, known for his cunning and ruthlessness. "We've got movement on the scanners. Looks like a ship approaching fast," Luca announced, his voice laced with urgency. Carter peered at the display. "Can we outrun them?" "It's the Ghoul's ship," Tara replied, recognizing the distinctive markings. "Not likely. He's got one of the fastest vessels in this sector." The team braced themselves as the Ghoul's ship drew closer, its intent clear. With nowhere to run, Carter made a decision. "Prepare for boarding. We'll defend the ship." The moments that followed were tense. As the Ghoul's ship docked, Carter and his team took strategic positions. The hatch opened with a hiss, and the Ghoul stepped in, flanked by his heavily armed crew. Carter stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We don't need to fight. We've done nothing wrong." The Ghoul, his face hidden behind a mask, laughed coldly. "Wrong is a matter of perspective, Doctor. You're worth a fortune alive or dead. The choice is yours." It was Miles who broke the deadlock, his voice steady. "Look at the data. See for yourself. We're not the enemy here. You could be part of something bigger than a bounty." The Ghoul paused, a moment of hesitation in his stance. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Show me." As Carter and Miles led him to the data terminal, Tara and Luca kept a wary eye on the Ghoul's crew. Carter showed him the videos, the research, the undeniable evidence of their findings. To everyone's surprise, the Ghoul took a step back, his posture relaxing slightly. "This changes things. Not enough to stop the hunt, but maybe enough to rethink my role in it." He left without another word, his crew trailing behind him. The team let out a collective breath, the immediate threat gone, for now. Carter looked around at his team, their faces a mix of relief and determination. "We keep moving, we keep speaking out, whatever it takes." As they prepared to leave the area, the reality of their situation was clearer than ever. They were catalysts in a galactic dialogue that could no longer be silenced. But with each step they took, the path grew more perilous, the stakes higher. They were pioneers on the frontier of change, but the galaxy was not yet ready to embrace their vision without a fight. As their ships sped away from the encounter with the Ghoul, Carter Langley felt the weight of their situation heavier than ever. The team had narrowly escaped what could have been a lethal confrontation, thanks to a moment of unexpected understanding. Yet, the journey was far from over. "Where to next?" Luca Griggs asked, hands steady at the helm. "We can't keep running forever." Carter leaned over the navigation console, his eyes scanning the star maps. "We head to Orison. It's time we took this directly to the Galactic Council. They need to see what we've seen, understand what we've come to understand." Tara Smith nodded in agreement, checking her weapon. "It's a bold move. The Council isn't exactly known for being open-minded, especially with humans stirring up controversy." Miles Jensen, ever the optimist, chimed in. "It's our best shot. If we can convince them, maybe we can turn the tide on this whole situation." The journey to Orison was tense, with every alert causing them to brace for another confrontation. But as they approached the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council, a sense of solemnity settled over the team. Upon arrival, they were greeted not with hostility, but with a wary bureaucracy. Carter presented their credentials and the urgency of their message, insisting on an audience with the Council. "We've brought proof of a significant misjudgment regarding the threx," Carter explained to the Council's secretary. "We believe this information could alter the current galactic stance on the species, and perhaps on humanity itself." After a tense wait, they were granted access to the Council chamber, a vast area where representatives of different species convened. The room hummed with whispered discussions as Carter and his team entered, the focus of every eye in the chamber. Standing at the center of the room, Carter began. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council, we come before you not as agitators, but as advocates for truth. Our findings on the threx challenge the very foundation of what we believe them to be. He proceeded to display the data, showing interactions with the threx that depicted not mindless beasts, but creatures capable of understanding and even empathy. A murmur ran through the chamber. Ambassador Zorvac of the Trinali, previously a staunch critic, raised his voice. These revelations are profound, but they are also deeply disturbing. How are we to reconcile these images with the beasts that ravaged our colonies? Carter met his gaze. By understanding that what we think we know about the threx, and perhaps about each other, is incomplete. We advocate for a reconsideration of the threx's hazard status and for a new approach to our interactions with them. The debate that followed was intense. Representatives argued, deliberated, and challenged. Yet, as the hours passed, the tide of opinion began to shift subtly. The evidence was too compelling to dismiss outright. Finally, the council president called for a vote. The chamber fell silent as each representative cast their vote. The results were displayed for all to see. A majority in favor of re-evaluating the threx's classification and opening a scientific inquiry into Carter's findings. As the gavel struck, signifying the end of the session, Carter felt a cautious hope. The council's decision was a significant victory, not just for his team, but potentially for human-alien relations. "We've done what we came to do," Carter said to his team as they exited the chamber. "Let's see where this leads." The impact of their advocacy was yet to be fully realized, but one thing was clear. The path they had chosen was changing the course of galactic history, one step at a time. In the aftermath of the Galactic Council's decision to re-evaluate the classification of the threx, Carter Langley and his team awaited the implications of their groundbreaking presentation. The council chambers, usually a place of staunch debate and rigid protocol, had been transformed into a forum of urgent discussions and hurried consultations. Back on their ship in orbit around Orison, the team gathered in the common area, processing the gravity of their success. "It's a win, no doubt," Miles Jensen said, scrolling through the news feeds that were abuzz with their council appearance. "But it feels like we've just kicked a hornet's nest." Tara Smith nodded, her eyes on the starlit void outside their viewport. "Yeah, and every faction with a stake in the threx status quo is going to be re-evaluating their positions right now. We should expect pushback." Luca Griggs checked their ship's defenses and communication systems. "We'll need to stay sharp. The Council's decision doesn't just change things for the threx, it challenges some powerful interests." Carter, who had been quietly reflective, finally spoke. "Our next steps need to be carefully planned. The Council's open inquiry into the threx will undoubtedly lead to more studies, potentially even a protective status for them, which could change their interaction policies galaxy-wide." As they strategized their future actions, a direct message from the Council arrived, summoning Carter back to the chamber. With a serious expression, he followed the summons alone, understanding the weight of the moment. Upon entering the Council chamber, Carter found a smaller assembly of key ambassadors and the Council president, who greeted him with a nod. "Dr. Langley, your presentation has indeed stirred the Council, and many of our long-standing members are reconsidering old views. However, not all are in agreement, and the path forward will require careful navigation." Ambassador Zorvac stood, his demeanor less confrontational than before. "Your findings have opened a door to potential peace with a species we've only known as enemies. This council is prepared to authorize a protective status for the threx under trial conditions, with your team leading the observation and continued study." Carter was momentarily taken aback by the offer, the responsibility vast. "We are honored, Ambassador. We'll coordinate with the best xenobiological and diplomatic minds available. Ensuring a peaceful coexistence with the threx is a goal that benefits us all." The Council President then formalized the decision. "Let it be recorded that on this day, the Galactic Council has not only reclassified the threx, but has also endorsed a human-led initiative to forge a new understanding between species. Dr. Langley, the eyes of many will be upon you, some doubting, others hopeful. We trust you will proceed with the wisdom and integrity you have shown thus far." With the Council's endorsement, Carter returned to his team, a mixture of triumph and trepidation among them as he relayed the news. They were now at the forefront of an unprecedented effort, pioneers in a new era of interspecies relations. "The real work begins now," Carter told his team as they prepared to depart Orison. "Everything up to this point was just laying the groundwork. It's going to be a challenging path, but one we are ready for." As their ship set course back to Zanthi 3, the team felt the weight of their new roles. No longer merely researchers, they were now diplomats and guardians of a new bridge between humanity and a misunderstood species. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with potential dangers and political intrigue, but also filled with the possibility of lasting peace. The journey back to Zanthi 3 was marked by a blend of anticipation and resolve. Carter Langley and his team were not just returning as researchers, but as pioneers of a potentially new era in galactic relations. The ship was quiet, each member of the team lost in their thoughts about the responsibilities that lay ahead. Upon landing, they found that the news of their groundbreaking work and the subsequent decision of the Galactic Council had reached even the remote corners of the galaxy. Media drones hovered as they disembarked, capturing the moment for viewers across countless worlds. Carter faced the cameras with a calm demeanor. Today marks a new chapter not just for us, but for all who seek peace and understanding in the galaxy. We return not to conquer, but to coexist and learn. The base camp was now upgraded, funded by the Galactic Council as a field research station. Scientists from various species, including those once skeptical of the threx, joined Carter's team. Together, they set up monitoring stations, observation posts, and began a series of non-invasive studies on the threx. As the weeks turned into months, the team documented incredible scenes, threx in their natural habitat showing complex social behaviors, nurturing their young, and even engaging in what appeared to be playful activities. These findings were streamed across the galaxy, challenging old fears and prejudices. One day, while observing a threx family from a distance, Miles Jensen turned to Carter. "You know, I was thinking about how we feared them initially. And now, here we are, watching them like they're just another part of this big cosmic neighborhood." Carter nodded, his eyes not leaving the gentle giants. "It's a lesson in humility, Miles. We feared what we didn't understand. But with patience and effort, fear gave way to knowledge, and knowledge is leading us to coexistence." The project's success led to further easing of restrictions on human activities in unexplored regions, though with strict regulations and oversight to prevent exploitation. Meanwhile, Carter's approach, advocating for understanding and cooperation, became a model for other interspecies research initiatives. As the first anniversary of their council presentation approached, the team organized a symposium on Zanthi 3, inviting delegates from various planets. The event was a celebration of their achievements and a forum for discussing future collaborations. During his keynote speech, Carter reflected on their journey. "When we first set foot on Zanthi 3, we were explorers driven by curiosity. That curiosity revealed a misunderstood creature, feared for centuries. By choosing understanding over fear, we have not only changed our relationship with the threx, but have taken a step towards changing the dynamics of power and fear that too often dictate interactions in our galaxy." The symposium concluded with a declaration of Zanthi 3 as a protected research zone, its status ratified by the Galactic Council. It was a sanctuary not only for the threx, but for all who sought to promote peace and understanding in the galaxy. As the delegates departed, Carter stood looking out over the lush jungles of Zanthi 3, a sense of peace filling him. They had faced immense challenges, navigated through fears and uncertainties, and emerged with hope. The galaxy was vast, filled with the unknown, and they had just begun to scratch the surface. "Here's to the future," Carter said to his team, a smile spreading across his face, "and to a galaxy where fear gives way to friendship." With the setting sun casting long shadows over the jungle, the team looked ahead to the challenges and possibilities that awaited them. In a galaxy of countless stars and unexplored worlds, the story of humanity and the threx was just one of many. But it was a story that would inspire countless others to look beyond their fears and seek understanding in the face of the unknown.